my teeth, I got a lot of shine. Running up the number, that's a lot of crime. Try to take it from me, must be out your mind. Lot of slime. Smoky in the air, that's a lot of crime. Pockets running over with the dollar sign. Try to take it from me. Yeah. Big time. Big time. Big time. Big time. Running up the numbers, that's a lot of crime. Try to take it from me, must be out your mind. Lot of shine. Smoky in the air, that's a lot of crime. It's running over with the dollar sign. Try to take it from me. Big time. Diamonds in my teeth, I got a lot of shine. Running up the numbers, that's a lot of grind. Try to take it from me, must be out your mind. I'm big time, lot of shine. Smoky in the air, that's a lot of crime. Pockets running over with the dollar sign. Try to take it from me, from me, from me, from me, from me. Big time, number 9. Diamonds in my teeth, I got a lot of shine. Numbers, that's a lot of crime. Try and take it from me, must be out your mind.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a Wednesday edition of the Ysn Power Hour here in the Ysn studios on the worldwide headquarters here at Your Sports Network here in East Palestine. Joined today by Scotty Mincher. A different look for the Power Hour today because we're going to start changing a little bit of how we do things. Not necessarily always going to be a panel discussion. Sometimes we're going to bring in athletes, some of our broadcasters, coaches, and program leaders throughout and have just an honest conversation with them. And I know one of the guys that a lot of people have been clamoring for to know more about is the guy that's across from me right now, Scotty Mincher, who is a big part of us at YSN. So we're going to get to him in just a little bit and learn more about Scotty Mincher. But as we do each and every day here on the Power Hour, we talk about today in sports history. And in 1997, on January 26th, 1997, Mario Lemieux tied the NHL record with 4 goals in the third period as Pittsburgh won 5-2 at Montreal, the 39th career hat trick and 13th 4-goal game of Mario Lemieux's career, tying an NHL record shared by Wayne Gretzky and Mike Bossy. When you think of all-time greats in the NHL, where does Mario Lemieux sit with you, Scotty Mincher?
Well, to be honest, DJ, like I appreciate the NHL and I follow it more, especially when it comes to playoff time. That being said, I am no expert when it comes to the NHL.
Is that because Cleveland doesn't have a hockey team?
Yeah, for the most part.
You can't even adopt the Penguins because Cleveland doesn't have a team.
I don't have a problem with the
I saw
Penguins.
you in a Blackhawks jersey before.
Like, yeah. I really like the Blackhawks logo. I don't have a problem with the Penguins. I think it's a fair trade-off. Like, if Steelers fans root for the Cavs, I think that's cool. If Cleveland's fans root for the Pens, I think that's cool as well. But just off the top of my head, from just the players I know throughout history, I mean, Lemieux, to me, he's got to be in the top 5. I would say.
There's
All
people out
time.
there that would argue that he's better than Gretzky.
Uh,
I'm not going to say who, but I'm just going to say there's people out there that feel Mario Lemieux is better than Wayne Gretzky. I'm not going to necessarily argue that. I don't have even a good person to argue that would be Mike Ackelson. I would say he would be able to tell us if that's a legit argument or not.
He seems like a huge, from his what I see on social media.
Huge biscuit head.
Yeah, huge hockey fan. And I will say, like, on TV, it's just a little harder for me to follow,
To track it, yeah.
and to track it. But live at the game, to be that skilled, even the officials going up and down the ice,
It's crazy.
like that, it's just insane to me. I love it. I haven't been to a game in Pittsburgh's new arena, but I went to the old, I think it was the Civic Arena at the time. And this was 2006 or 2007. So Sid was still a kid. Sid the Kid, as they called him. He was just breaking in. And it was on that team, I believe, with Jordan Stahl was also on that. The Penguins they've had over the years just great teams.
Siggy says, if it wasn't for Mario, many of us would not be fans. He was that good. And I'm a firm believer in that as well. I think if it wasn't for Mario, the Penguins would no longer be in Pittsburgh, for sure. I think they were looking at Kansas City as an option before he bought the team. And now it's partially owned by LeBron James and the Fenway Sports Group. So very interesting stuff. But congratulations. What was it? What was the date on that? It was 1997. So I was in 7th grade when that happened. You were just a wee lad, as well. But that happened on this day in sports history, 1997, with Mario Lemieux. Happening today, Scotty Mincher, is our first of the one-on-one series that I'm trying to break out here. And, you're just the lucky contestant number one who drew the short straw and gets to sit across from me and talk about yourself for a little bit. So I want to explain what's going on from that standpoint. Is we're going to learn more about these athletes and players and student athletes and coaches, broadcasters even, and people that are embedded in the communities for reasons being around sports. So Scotty being a long time, and I'm talking about a long time supporter of YSN and sports here locally. And obviously he's had his fair share of adversity. So we're going to talk about all of that, starting with kind of the beginnings of Scotty Mincher. Scotty, tell everybody where you grew up and, kind of what your parents do and what they've done for a long time. I know your dad's a pharmacist, right?
Yes. And I grew up, it's one of those things I remember we were talking on a show, DJ, and I'll say Youngstown because I always consider myself a Youngstowner, even though if you want to get technical, real technical, I grew up in Camel, Ohio. And yes, my dad is a pharmacist. He currently works at the Giant Eagle in Poland, Ohio, and he's been doing that since he's been doing that a long time. I want to say the year after I was born in 1989, because I was born in 88. 89 was the first year he started. And then my mother, she works at a hair salon. It's also in Poland. Visage Hair Salon by La Rocca's Pizza and Burger King and those food establishments. And she's been doing that. It's been, if not 30 years now, it's close to it as well, because she's been doing that since the early to mid 90s. So she's been doing that quite a while. And I grew up, and ever since I was a little kid, since my earliest memories, which about as far as I can remember back, and it probably goes back to '93. That's about as far as I could remember back. And that would be before I was even five
Right.
5 years old, because I was born in late November, so I was 4. But ever since I was 4 years old, I just remember, and a lot of this I give thanks and praise to my dad, and some my mom as well, but my dad more than anybody. His influence on me, and his influence along with just sports in general, and ESPN having such a big impact on my life since I could remember. I remember me and my dad in the '90s with the sports centers with Stuart Scott, and I think Keith Oberman, he was on quite a few of them at the time. Uh, you had, I think it was Rob Steiner, I want to say,
Steiner.
was he was on it quite a bit as well on a regular basis. Rich Eisen was enough. So we would watch the same Sports Center over and over, and I would watch full games. And when I was little, my early childhood hero was a guy that's behind us in the YSN studios. It was His Airness, Michael Jordan, was one of my big time. I just looked up to him, just to the greatest deal. I thought he was the man. So even though all along I was a Cavs fan, I kind of front run it and like the Bulls, because I feel like everybody does that a little bit when they're young, and the first team they see that's really good, they kind of get attached to. So even though the Bulls were a rival, I was one of those oddball like Cavs / Bulls fans, strictly because of Michael Jordan.
We got a question from Joe Gatto of the Impractical Jokers, and he says, question for Scotty, did you go to Camel or did you go to another surrounding school?
I actually went to another surrounding school. It was in Struthers. I can't say currently. I'm not sure if it's still a school or not. I thought I heard a couple years ago that it was, but it was actually Paul C. Bunn Elementary is where I.
Well, like that's who? Was that Lowellville or Struthers, or who is
Struthers.
that? That's Struthers. Okay.
Yeah. So it was in Struthers, and it was a school for people like myself with disabilities, but there were also people there that didn't have any disabilities also went there too. So that's where I went to school, and that had a big. I mean, I don't want to say I hated school, because I didn't, but I really I really just love sports. Since I was little, I wanted to. It's ironic because on this day, and we're gonna get to later, our sparks, and it's gonna be one of my sparks. But ever since I was a little kid, I would just watch sports games and listen to the broadcasters and kind of practice. And I wanted to be that sportscaster. So in a way, for even from the time when I was young, I felt like I didn't take school as seriously as I could have or should have. But I think all of us, to some extent, unless you're just born and you're just, a genius out the gate, all of us have certain days about school we wish we could go back, or we tried a little harder and didn't goof off. But I don't know, that always I just always felt comfortable with sports, and that's a big reason why, especially being out of school so long and losing touch with high school sports, it's a big reason why I wanted to join the YSN family, and it's a big reason why I did join the YSN family. Geez, it's been about going on 4 years now. It's hard to believe. So.
Yeah, it is. You talk about sports a lot, and obviously sports means a lot to you. What was it about sports from the early days? And I know, being around your dad a ton, and he's a sports head and a sports junkie. You said you watched a lot of sports. And what was it about sports that really caught your attention and really got you pumped about it, or really drawn towards sports in general?
I just always, from again going back to my earliest days, what I could remember, I just always loved the idea of competition. And at the end of the day, we're gonna get a winner and we're gonna get a
Hopefully,
loser.
right? Hopefully.
Yeah. Unfortunately, now I feel like our society, in some ways, not all, but in some ways, I feel like, is that day gonna come to an end? Is everybody gonna get a trophy now? Just for
We're just talking from NFL standpoint. You
participating.
have the overtime in the NFL where regulation goes out and then the overtime runs out. You have a tie. Steelers and the Lions did it this year. Major League Baseball had an all-star game that ended in a tie not too long ago. So when you think about that, that's kind of what I was leaning towards is, you hope it's just not tied. Everybody wants a winner and a loser. You hope to just not tie. Another question they have for you, Scotty, what's your favorite sport out of everyone?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say it might be a cop out answer. This might be, walking the fence or dodging the question a little bit, but I'm gonna go with this. I say my favorite sport to watch live is definitely baseball,
Okay.
but my favorite sport to watch on television is football.
Wow. Okay. Well, why is that?
I just something about. I'll start with baseball. Just something about being at a baseball game in the cozy, laid back atmosphere. Now, it's different when it's playoff time because the tension and the anxiety is riding on every single pitch. But I just like the fact of when it comes to baseball that you could just go to a game, sit back, enjoy yourself, have a few beverages, adult if you want to, have a good hot dog. And it's not like you want to miss the action, but if you miss a pitch or two here and there because you're talking to someone, it's baseball. The season is a marathon, and a lot of time the game becomes a marathon because unlike other sports, there's no clock when it comes to baseball. So I just like the fact that there's not as much. It doesn't. It's the sport that I think as a fan, it's the least stressful sport to watch in life, and we know as humans, as positive as everybody should try to be, and as happy as you want to be every day. We know, to use a baseball analogy, life throws you curveballs. Life could get really hard. So I just see baseball as one of those things, as a great escape. That's why it's my favorite sport to watch live, because you go to a football game, you can't really during the live action, you can't really go away for a couple minutes to grab something because there's so much importance on every single play in a football game. Where baseball, it's important, but not everything is, life or death. Not everything is totally hanging in the balance. But to fully answer the question, I just think the NFL, and don't get me wrong, I love going to the games, but we saw it this weekend. I think I just witnessed in my lifetime the greatest round of playoff games I have ever seen NFL wise. I don't even think it's close. And there's just so many different, especially with the red zone, which we started the audible call a couple years ago at YSN, and it's just they could give it to you. You get a little taste of every single game. So it's not like it doesn't diminish the fun and excitement of going to an NFL game, but I think you could get almost just as much an experience out of watching it on TV at home in your man cave as you can going to the game. You're not going to get the full game experience, but it's the closest thing on TV, I believe, to actually being at the game.
I feel like when you go to an NFL game, you're missing something, right? You're missing, every other NFL team outside of the two that you're watching, because the stadium, you kind of have to be into the game, right? They want you to be into the game. They've got things going on between plays. They've got things going on all across the board. Baseball, it's like you said, it's a leisurely sport where if you go there, you're not really missing anything. You can be part of the game and cheer and do your thing, but you can also talk to the person next to you, meet a new fan, go buy something from the team shop, and you're not missing an important part necessarily of the game. And it's a 162 game season. So at the end of the day, one game out of 162, does it really matter? Maybe, but at the end of the day, like you talked about, Scotty, you're not going to miss too much. So I can appreciate that. And you're not walking the fence. That's just two different ways that you enjoy watching sports. And that was the question. We're getting a ton of questions. We're going to go, DJ Folkley has a question, but we're going to go Amo first. Scotty, why are you a Cleveland sports fan?
I like the easy answer here. And I think the thing that people that know me, if they're watching this right now, they're gonna say, he's gonna say his dad, which my dad was a huge influence on that. But I also, in a weird way, DJ, I think that as much hostility, at least as far as the NFL is concerned, as much hostility as there is between a lot of Steelers and Browns fans, even though I believe it hasn't really been a rivalry in a long time, because the Browns have still been kind of like the little brother that the Steelers have beat up on, but there's still the trolling on social media and the going back and forth. But I think it also makes it special too, and you just want to stop and appreciate the big reason I'm a Cleveland fan, and I also it's a weird thing because on one side of the coin I hate Pittsburgh, but on another side it's like I also respect them as a city, because I've always felt like the underdog who's had to kind of overcome things in my life, and I feel like I've really thrived in that role, and I've embraced it now at this point. I really embrace that role. In cities like Pittsburgh and Cleveland, they're blue collar and take your lunch pail to work type cities. And I know DJ, you used to be a huge LeBron fan. You're not so much anymore. But as cheesy as it may sound, one of the LeBron quotes, sayings that still sticks with me is, and I think you'll appreciate this, sitting in the chair you do at YSN, being part of a business, the business owner, is the whole nothing is given, everything is earned. Go out and earn something, make something of yourself, work hard, bust your ass, and eventually, you're gonna bear the fruit of your labor. So that's like the easy answer and the most obvious answer of me being a sports fan would be Dad, because he just kind of drilled it in my head that I'm a Cleveland fan and you're going to be one too. But the thing that's secondary to that really had a positive influence on me and maybe want to embrace Cleveland sports is the kind of the underdog, the scrappy underdog mentality of the city. So I guess that's my answer to Amo.
Hey, it's a long way around it, but you got down on the nitty gritty. All right. DJ Folkley wants to know from both of us, what is the greatest rivalry in sports, in your opinion?
Oh, man.
Mine's Ohio State, Michigan. I think I fight it. I'm not an Ohio State fan. I'm not a Michigan fan, but it's hard to beat that rivalry because the two teams hate each other so much. So I'm going to go with Ohio State, Michigan. What say you?
Yeah, it's so hard to disagree with that, especially, and as you know, DJ, I am an Ohio State fan. So I would probably put that at number one. When I was a kid, especially when the Browns came back, I wanted it to be so bad. I wanted it to be Browns Steelers, but again, the Browns have to start winning at a higher clip for it to really. I think the Ravens have been much more of a rivalry to the Steelers over the years than the Browns have. Yeah, exactly. The old Browns. So it's hard to argue that. I'd say I have to agree with you, DJ, but I will say there's a rivalry that comes close and is not quite. It's not quite the ride you get with Ohio State, Michigan, and I don't think it's quite as riveting, but it's a close second, and that's the Red Sox and Yankees. I just think you've seen great games over the years between those two teams, and I'll never forget being 13, 14, 15 years old and watching in 2003 the Red Sox 5 outs away from the World Series. Aaron Boone hits the walk-off home run. Yeah, Aaron Bleepin Boone. And then the next year, the Yankees get a 3-0 lead. Everybody sees the Red Sox is dead. They become still the only team to this day to come back from 4-3. But the reason why it's partly because of my bias, but another reason why I think the Ohio State Michigan rivalry is a notch above the Yankees and the Sox. I just think it's one of those things where I think in baseball, anybody could win any baseball game because it's it's one game, and you've had a lot of heated moments between managers and players. Like I think it was the same year, 2003, Pedro Martinez threw Don Zimmer on the ground, who I believe was the Yankees pitching coach
Right.
at the time. But uh, I've never seen, and maybe it's because we don't live in the Boston, New York market, but I've never seen so much hostility between two communities when you talk about Columbus and then Michigan. I like there's people that no matter what, even though before this year Ohio State had owned Michigan and they continued drubbing them every year, I would still see the posts like Ann Arbor is a whore, and like there was so much just hatred, and like it's kind of like it makes me think of, I don't know if you remember this, DJ, but ESPN, they used to run a set of commercials, and I think what makes the Ohio State Michigan rivalry most special is that I think they respect each other, but once that ball is kicked off, like you better you better have your big boy pants on. And I just love the fact that like you can watch that game. And I remember back to a commercial when an Ohio State fan with a Buckeye shirt on was kissing a Michigan fan with a Michigan shirt on, and on ESPN it said, "Without sports, this wouldn't be disgusting." And I don't know, it's just been a fun time, little back and forth. And the last big reason is one of my earliest and favorite sports memories was in the early 2000s, still being a kid, and Jim Trussell at the Ohio State basketball game guaranteeing a win before his first game as head coach of the Buckeyes football program against Michigan. So I guess because we live in Ohio, I give the Ohio State Michigan rivalry just a slight edge over Red Sox Yankees. But to me, Red Sox Yankees will be second. I know you're interviewing me today, DJ, but do you have one that comes close as a second, or you consider second best?
That's a good question. I think that there's a ton of good rivalries out there. For me, there's a lot of one-on-ones. You know what I mean? You talk about Venus and Serena. You talk about Andre Agassi, Pete Sampras. You talk about The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin, if you want to go that route, or Triple H and Stone Cold for that matter. I enjoy rivalries from a standpoint. Like we just had a rivalry game on Saturday. It was West Branch and Salem. I love local rivalries that live on. It was the first time Salem's ever swept West Branch since 2004 in girls basketball. So rivalries to me are the reason we watch sports. And I think rivalries kind of like people sit there and they go, well, this is a rivalry game. Just because you're playing a team in a conference doesn't make it a rivalry game. A rivalry game is your one and only. You have to win that game. If you don't win any other game but that, you are absolutely okay with that. You know what I mean? If you have a 10-game season, if you beat that one team and go 1-9, you're fine with that. So
yeah, and I know you get annoyed with it, DJ, but it's like Browns fans that don't like last year beating the Steelers twice and beating them in that play. It's almost like the loss to the Chiefs didn't matter,
right,
because they finally beat the Steelers a couple times once in the regular season, albeit without Ben, and once in the playoffs. But
Are we going to talk about that anymore? Or, I mean, you like beating
I
that
mean,
drum a lot, don't you?
yeah, I just thought I'd bring it up on just
one
slight
time.
little.
Just one time.
I mean, you got us twice again this year, so.
The world's back in orbit.
Yeah.
COVID is on its way out, and the Steelers beating the Browns' ass once again. So we're getting back to reality. We're going to take a break. When we come back, more with Scotty Mincher. We want to take your questions. We'll field them. So if you got anything for Scotty for today's one-on-one on the Power Hour on YSN, make sure you don't hesitate. But we got to pay some bills, which means, Scotty, that we got to take a break. We'll be back with more with Scotty Mincher right after this on the YSN Power Hour.
Every customer has a story, and at Greenwood Chevrolet, we are committed to making sure it ends with you in the right vehicle. I get to be part of somebody's adventure, whether it's buying a car for the first time, helping them get approved, or finding the perfect car for their budget. I'm proud that people trust me with their finances. They trust me to take care of them, and they trust me with their story. I'm Tracy, and I'm ready to go the extra mile for you, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Working with your family can be stressful at times. But because they're family, you know that you're going to get a loving, honest answer, even when things don't make sense, to any problem. Dealing with Medicare can be confusing and overwhelming. That's why here at Myers Family Insurance, we do our best to give you honest and caring answers to all of your questions. Family, like Medicare, isn't always perfect, but when you put others first, the results can be amazing.
For all your Medicare needs, call Myers Family Insurance.
It's storm season.
I think we're under the gun for some heavy storms over the next couple of hours.
And Storm Tracker 21 is ready.
This is probably the one we're keeping a closer eye on.
On air.
And locally, we're going to have a lot of eyes on our area.
Online.
All right, let's talk high-risk futurecast and the timing of this weather.
On social media and on our app.
Notice we'll have scattered showers on Thursday.
Stay ready with Storm Tracker 21.
The severe weather threat now through around sunset this evening.
Hi, this is Tommy Clem, owner of WRS Insurance Solutions.
WRS Insurance Solutions is a local independent agency that specializes in life, Medicare, long-term care, and disability products. Call us at 330-953-3722 or visit us at wrsinsurancesolutions.com to learn more.
Good luck to all the student athletes in the Valley.
And welcome back to the one-on-one with Scotty Mincher here on the YSN Power Hour, about halfway through. Scotty, lots of questions coming in. One from Darren, well, it's a comment more so from Darren Miller. He says, YSU and Marshall back in the 90s. That was a hell of a rivalry. I remember those days. And then naturally, those were early days for me. I was just a puppy. Jeff Collins says, favorite college football team for the both of you?
Mine, I said it earlier in the show, and when it comes to most sports, I don't really like. A lot of people have their favorite team and then kind of like a secondary team. I'll do that in baseball or in basketball, but college football, it's one team, the Buckeyes. But I will say, I could understand why people like yourself, DJ, don't like the Buckeyes, because I think we're some of the most spoiled and entitled fans. The whole, like, the Ohio State, it is a little obnoxious.
I just don't understand.
I'm a big Buckeye.
I don't get it. I never will. If you don't go to college or a university at the Ohio State University and you choose somewhere else, like, why is that, and how is that your number one pick for teams you follow? Like, you're literally giving your money, your resources, your time to another school. Like, for me, I'm a Westminster fan because I graduated from Westminster, and I understand D3 versus D1, but like you have people go to Akron, but they're Ohio State fans. You have people that go to Penn State, but they're Ohio State fans. To me, it doesn't add up. And so that's and people could call me crazy because I don't live in Pittsburgh and I'm a Pittsburgh Steeler fan, but locally, they're the closest team to us. Like they're closer than Cleveland. So that's why when Cleveland fans get all over Pittsburgh fans in Ohio, but the reality is a lot of us, Pittsburgh's closer than Cleveland.
It is closer. And I mean, I've always I don't know how accurate this is, but people have said for a long time in the Youngstown area, it's a 50-50 split between Browns and Steelers fans. I think, I don't know, maybe there might be because I believe we are considered, when we were born, DJ, we're considered millennials, unfortunately, or however you want to take that. But I just think because the Steelers have been so dominant that I think there might be if I had to guess, there might be a tad more Steelers fans than Browns fans in the Youngstown area.
Look at a perfect example. Amo went to Akron, but OSU all day. Amo couldn't dream of getting into OSU. What? I don't understand it. I don't get it. Like I like YSU, but you can tell why I like YSU. I mean, I guess they can't see it anymore, but it's on that wall. Like they're part of our culture here at YSN, and we cover YSU baseball. Right now, we're covering some YSU basketball for the women. I'm a huge fan of Doug Phillips, huge fan of Jim Tressel from that standpoint. And if you want to talk about local, and people are going to say, well, you had the chance to go to YSU and you went to Westminster, you can't cheer for YSU. Yeah, you got me. But at the same token, it's what we do. It's who we cover. So Shauna says, I'm a fan of YSU and Akron because I graduated from those two schools, but ultimately I'm a Buckeye fan. I can't explain it. I was accepted at OSU, but ended up at YSU. So there you go. A lot of Shauna, we respect you. And Shauna, a proud sponsor of YSN with Quakertown. So make sure you hit her up. She's out of Salem. And she got some great things. Great thing. You can go get some Buckeye stuff, get some Brown stuff, Scotty. Load up at Quakertown. And you can too. More questions for Scotty. Let's get down to some nitty-gritty stuff. Okay, so big sports fan. Obviously, from your standpoint, adverse conditions, with your disability, you can't play sports. What would be the sport that you'd most want to play if you had one chance to play that sport?
Most want to play if I had one chance. That is great. That is a phenomenal question. And I don't really think it's close. As much as I've talked about the another sport in this interview, when it comes to playing, I don't think it's close. It has to be baseball.
What position?
I would want to be a shortstop. Shortstop in baseball. I just feel like there's been, growing up watching Omar Vizquel and what he was able to do with the glove, and even at the plate, he was a solid hitter, more known for his defense and his glove. And then, as much as I don't root for the Yankees because they're that team that you see baseball, it's not like the NFL where everybody's in the same boat. The Yankees have before, in my opinion, they bought a couple world titles, and if it's not against the rules, I get it. You got to try to win, but I've never been a Yankee fan, but I've always respected the captain, Derek Jeter, and just admired the way he played. just really giving it his all. And he came up, I think his first year was 96, his rookie season. So I've just always been really intrigued by the shortstop position. Um, and seeing, I mean, one of the best double play combinations in Omar Vizquel and Roberto Alomar at second. I mean, I may never see anything like that again. I haven't seen it since, not in Cleveland. So I would say shortstop, man, and baseball would definitely be my sport.
All right, so baseball. So from your standpoint, you have a very unique angle and a lens on what we do here at YSN, because obviously now you're part of the game. As we're proud to announce that you'll be announcing a game with me on next Thursday, your first ever game that you get to announce from a basketball standpoint. We're excited for that. And I know you're nervous as all get out, but it's an honor for me to be able to do that. But Scotty, you have a unique situation, a set of circumstances that others don't necessarily have to go through. Everybody's got to battle through their own adversity. Are there frustrations for you when you see some of the attitudes of these professional baseball players when they play a game that you would love to play just one day in your life, and they take complete advantage of, and you know, they manipulate things and complain? Like, for instance, the strike that's going on right now in Major League Baseball. Do you ever just want to say shut up and play, because you would give anything to be in their situation and play one game of baseball?
Sure, definitely. I think you baseball, you just said it, DJ. It's the perfect example. You got millionaires fighting with billionaires right now. So I definitely get frustrated. In a sense, I understand it, DJ, even though I am frustrated, because if you're making that type of money, I think your ego get that just uh, just because I think, you know, it starts to, whether people want to admit it or not. I think your ego gets that much bigger, and things start to go through your head a little bit, and you start thinking, you know, you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, even though you may be far from it. So I I in a way I understand, because these guys, they're not thinking like we are. They're thinking, well, this guy got $25 million a year. I'm better than him. I should be getting 10 or 15 more mil. And then I'm sitting here saying, okay, like, I get that, but when is enough? I mean, especially during these times, with we've had to deal with the coronavirus going on 2 years now, and the variant, and you know, DJ, how scary, you know, the thought of it can be, being a business owner, and businesses I mean, there's people working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table. They don't want to hear about this shit. Like, it's like, all right, when, like, come to an agreement. Like, why are people, like, they're just not thinking about, it's like they lack empathy or an understanding for the, you know, the average everyday sports fan, hardworking American, like I said, in Ohio and PA, the blue collar people. So I definitely get, even though I understand it in a way, there's definitely frustration, because I feel like, to use a line in one of my favorite movies of all time, Good Will Hunting, I feel like these guys they're sitting on winning lottery tickets, and they have something that most of us would give anything to have. And they have a winning lottery ticket and they cash it in, but yet they're still not happy, and it's just baffling at times.
All right, so let's get down to the nitty gritty because we're at the 50-minute mark right now. So you joined YSN 4 years ago, nearly 4 years ago. A lot of, I think you were met with open arms naturally, being on the shows and being in the background for a lot of it, as a lot of us are. Why has being a part of this family been so good for you?
To me, it's really, to me, it's like, I wouldn't even say therapy. It's more than even therapy. I would say it's medicine, man. Like, I take it, and it's just one of those things where I come here, and just by coming here, just by being in this building, being in these headquarters, I feel better, and I look at that sign that's behind us that says results are all that matter. But I just admire the fact that here at YSN we all we want results, but we all work as a team. And is it gonna be perfect every day, every week? No, of course not. It's not gonna be perfect. But I just love the fact that not only do we have this in YSN DJ, which you started in 2017, not only do we cover sports and get to talk about sports, but we work like an organization, like a team, trying to get everybody on the same page and working together, brick by brick, as some of our great shirts say, and as you like to say. So it's just one of those things where when I'm here, don't I don't really feel disabled at all. And it might sound cheesy, but that's about the biggest. I mean, to me, that's about the ceiling. That's about the highest compliment I could give to any, workplace or friend. Like, I consider you a tremendous friend. Is if I'm sitting in this chair, but I don't feel bound by anything at all, I still feel like I have unlimited potential, then nothing can touch me, man. That's why YSN is so special to me.
That's awesome. One last question for you. What's left for Scotty? You just had a birthday last month. No, 2 months ago now. You're how old now?
I am 33 years old.
33 years young.
Not for.
What's left on the bucket list for Scotty Mincher?
Oh, my bucket list. We'll definitely getting to check a huge one off next week, calling my first game. As you said, I'm gonna have some nerves. I don't think it'll be nerves out the wazoo, but there'll definitely be some butterflies, like with anything you do for the first time. So that's definitely get to check that off. But it would just be, I love to help people when I can. And I would just like to say that anyone out there going through a struggle, going through a hard time, like, if you need a talk, I'm not saying, I'm you and I know everything you're going through, but I love helping people. And if anybody ever, needs to talk, they're struggling with something, I've had to overcome a lot. So I feel like I can relate a lot to not only the YSN followers, but really anybody I feel like I can become friends with, as long as they're not, a total douchebag. But yeah.
Perfect segue into our Joe Dickey Electric. What's your spark? Hang tight. It's the Joe Dickey Electric. What's your spark? Presented by Joe Dickey Electric, proudly powering the Mahoning Valley for over 60 years. Scotty, what's your spark?
I guess this is a perfect time. I mean, I know we talked about it a little bit already on the show today, but it has to be hearing the news, because I knew it was going to happen eventually, but the fact that you're like, you know what, I'm sick of talking about it. We're going to put it in action and go forward with it. The spark is me getting to call my first game next Thursday at South Range as they take on Niles. So that's going to be, I mean, I'm just chomping at the bit. I just feel like a kid in a candy store right now. So that's a big one. And another small one, and people are going to say, how'd you come up with this? But I watch, quite a bit of YouTube, and I got to say that women that could play the guitar or play the drums, I got to say, man, you are some talented individuals, and I think it's pretty hot too. So women that play the guitar and play the drums, that would be my other positive spark.
There you go. So if you play the drums and the guitar, Scotty Mencher will give you.
Oh, that's it. I'm buying you dinner. I'll treat you like a queen. Any woman out there, if you could play the drums and the guitar.
Taylor Swift, if you're out there, just give Scotty a call. So, all right, mine. I'm gonna go. I'm just gonna go put it out there to spend 60 minutes with you. To just dig in a little bit. I know that you were a little nervous coming in here when I kind of showed you what I thought about the idea, but to be able to have you come in every Wednesday, Scotty, you are an inspiration to us. I know Donnie loves you, Chris Sigler loves you, thinks the world of you. All of us at YSN think the world of you, and the fact that you're one of us is just icing on the cake, man. Your story is one that should be bound in a book somewhere for everybody to read and to understand. So to be able to really sit down with you and share the mic for 60 minutes, it's been an absolute honor, a pleasure. I hope everybody there got something out of it. We got a ton of feedback and questions from YS Nation and the Power Hour folks and the bleacher creatures, as we call them here on the Power Hour. So shout out to them as well. And thanks for digging in, man. I appreciate it. I know that you always are so embarrassed when we go off air because I'm so long-winded and da-da-da. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Just be you, and we'll take care of the rest. So on behalf of all of us here at the Power Hour, thanks for giving us an hour, Scotty, and doing a one-on-one with us. The first ever one-on-one on the Power Hour. It was awesome. Everything I wanted and more. So I appreciate you.
The pleasure's all mine, DJ, and thank you for recognizing that like anyone else, I'm flawed, but not holding it against me today as I rambled on. But it was this was so awesome, man. This is heaven, man. I feel like Field of Dreams. Is this heaven? Or is it just Iowa?
It's just Ohio, man. It's just Ohio. Mark Ross says Scotty equals Mr. Bonus. Love to see it, man. Love to see it, man. That's going to do it for our show. Thanks for tuning in. Greatly appreciate it for today's Power Hour. Catch us tomorrow, 3 to 4, right here on your Sports Network. Scotty, take us out.
See you, folks. Love you, YSN Nation.
YSN, thanks.